charts, and they're telling me that that the dollar could rebound all the way to $1.37. It kind of begs the question: are these markets being manipulated by a Republican administration during a campaign year? And I'll leave that for you to decide. But I think with all the bailouts that have taken place to date, and with all the bailouts that are on the horizon, and we'll get to that in a second, we have so much more new money in the system. The Fed is just printing money like there's no tomorrow. Huge money supply, a lot of liquidity. It can only drive the dollar down lower from this point. So I think the long-term trend is for the dollar to continue falling. On that note, in my last article in the North Bay Bohemian, I talked about the failure of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and we kind of called it right. The Congressional Budget Office had estimated that bailout would cost about $25 billion, and there were some who even said that number was on steroids. It was hyperinflated. Well, guess what? If you were to go to the business section of the New York Times any day this week, or the Wall Street Journal, you'd see that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are continuing to suffer deteriorating balance sheets, and it looks like the bailout will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 to $300 billion. Now, we can ask Dr. Fagan and Dr. Miller, how could $200 or $300 billion be spent on national health care? And it's just awesome. Here we are bailing out the robber barons of Wall Street. Shouldn't we be spending this money on Americans? So I did this last article for the Bohemian on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and the next article, which will be coming out in two weeks, will be on a follow-up to that. On that note, Sheila Blair, who is the chairwoman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, she insures your savings at your banks, was in the news yesterday saying that the bailouts were nowhere near to being completed. She's looking at a lot more toxic loans and a lot more portfolios and a lot more banks. She says it's a lot more worrisome than initially feared. The situation continues to deteriorate. I quote her, "This country is going to be slogging to work through this, but there is no easy way to do it," Mrs. Blair said about her plan during an interview. "We haven't seen the trough of the credit cycle yet." Her downbeat outlook was underscored on Tuesday by the FDIC's latest quarterly assessment of the industry. The agency said the number of bad loans at banks has ballooned to its highest point in about 20 years. Industry-wide, bank earnings have plunged 86% since April to June. That's just 3 short months. 86% collapse in earnings at banks. The FDIC, which guarantees savings and loans and checking deposits, also raised the number of banks on its list of problem lenders to 117, the most in this decade. So,
and when that came out 2 months ago, when they said there's over 100 banks that are going to fall into this, Bush, of course, came out and said, no, don't worry, there's only one. There's none of the other ones. It's all speculation. It's not going to happen.
Well, heck, when I was
2.5 months ago.
Well, when I was talking to my editors, when I was pitching this story, in that time frame, they told me I was crazy. John, why are you such a doomsayer? Why is it all doom and gloom? What's wrong with you? Why don't you just take a Prozac and feel better about this? 117 banks are likely to fail in the next year, and the chairwoman of the FDIC says that we have not seen the trough of this credit cycle. So that's pretty. That's reality. That's reality, folks.
So speaking of bubbles, where are we with healthcare these days? It seems like this is the next bubble. What do you think?
Well, it's. I think it's already hyperinflated. We'll talk to Dr. Fagan and Dr. Miller about this, of course, but. Healthcare is number 2 industry in the United States, behind the defense industry, and certainly a lot of problems. Let me introduce Dr. Miller first to our audience. Now, I don't have to introduce him to our audience here at KZYX because he's well known, and I love his show. I'm introducing him to our audience at UkiahValley.tv. Dr. Miller Richard Miller is was a U.S. Public Health Science Fellow. He has been on the faculty at the University of Michigan and at Stanford University. He has been on the founding board of directors at the Gestalt Institute of San Francisco. He's been the founder and the director of the Kochinders Drug and Alcohol Treatment Program, and he has consulted to the Haight-Ashbury Medical Clinic, the United States Department of Justice, the California Assembly, and the Governor's Council on Wellness and Fitness. Good morning, Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller?
Well, I'm hesitant to ask you questions about the healthcare system because I want to wait and ask them on the air. I don't want to sit through it twice.
Okay.
All right. Well, right now I'm just introducing you. Our next, Dr. Miller will be one of our co-hosts on this show. I wanted to be able to make the most of Dr. Fagan and ask her all the right questions. So I wanted Dr. Miller on the program. First, before I introduce Dr. Fagan, let me introduce the organization that she was president of. The Physicians for a National Healthcare Program is an organization of some 12,000 physicians. It is the leading advocate for nonprofit health insurance in the United States. They have chapters all across the country, spokespeople all across the country. If you want to know more, you can go to their website, and their phone number in Chicago, I believe, is 312-782-6006.
How long does this show go, do you know?
I think it's an hour.
Dr. Fagan? Okay. I'm introducing Dr. Fagan. Dr. Fagan, are you there? Hello? Dr. Fagan?